I have a catch-all closet. Every time that I organize it, it seems to fill up and get cluttered again.
How do I push to go even further without feeling guilty? There's something holding me back to go to that next minimal level.
I'm trying to get home and declutter, and I really don't give a crap. I'll be honest with you. I don't care if it stays there for eternity. And I shut down. What the heck can I do?
Welcome to the Minimal Mom Podcast, where simplicity meets inspiration on your journey to a clutter-free and intentional life. Join us each week as we dive into practical tips, real-life stories, and expert interviews to guide you through the art of decluttering, intentional living, and finding joy in the simple moments. This is the Minimal Mom Podcast.
I have something that I like to call a catch-all closet. It's for all the items in my home that do not have a space any other place. What should I do? Because every time that I organize it, it seems to fill up and get cluttered again.
This is such a good question. It reminds me of the Monica closet on that Friends episode. And most of us have some kind of catch-all space. I think it's just natural and we need it, a place where random things go to live. But here's the key with these. It's all about inventory. And so any space can only hold so much inventory in an organized manner. And this usually means then that it's only about half full or 2/3 full. So it kind of makes me think of Gage when we go through his treasure bins. I've been talking about his treasure bins a lot lately. That's where he can keep any of his most special of special things. And when they start to get to the point where the lids don't fit on, then we say, hey, buddy, we have to go through your treasure bins. And we go through it, and inevitably he'll pick out like 4 things to get rid of. And so it's like, yeah, the lid fits on again, but we don't actually have room to like continue to add more treasures to it, right? And often we do this with our storage spaces, is that we don't leave room to be able to move stuff around, to be able to easily see what we have. And we also don't leave room for future growth. And so when you go through to declutter this closet, we actually have to go probably a lot further than you've been going so that there is extra space in there. The second part then is to not be afraid to label things. Some people love labeling and they label all day long, and that's great. And others of us, I did not like labeling things in the past because it felt like the labels mocked me, or it made it very obvious then when things weren't getting put back into their proper place, because it's like, hey, this is a bin for hats and mittens. Why are hats and mittens everywhere else on all the other shelves except in there? And it made me feel like a failure. And so I realized that home organization and maintenance is 3 parts. It's 1, reducing the inventory. Once we get the inventory reduced, then we can organize it. So we put in simple organization. I think it's really wise to take the Clutterbug quiz and know what your Clutterbug style is. So I'm a ladybug, which means I'm non-visual. I prefer things out of sight, but in broad categories. So just give me baskets and I'll put labels on them and throw stuff in. But it's really helpful to know your organizing style, because if you're more of a visual organizer, then you might want to do clear acrylic bins so you can see everything. Where me, I actually prefer not to see the stuff. So it's very helpful then when you go to organize to understand what your organizing style is, and understand if you have shelves in there that are immovable, then we just have to work with that. And there's a point where you might invest in nice bins and baskets that fit the shelves very well, so they really maximize the space. And again, you're putting labels on them. It's very clear what goes there. And recently we added that bigger IKEA wardrobe to the spare bedroom that we have. And it's tough because I could fit more stuff in there, but not in an organized way where it's very easy to see what we have. So I have a basket for linens, and I have some containers for batteries and other random tech stuff. And then we have a shelf where the crock pot goes. And that's the only thing we put on there is the crock pot. We could fit more stuff on there, but it would make it harder to get into the crock pot, to get it and to see what we have. And so that's where I really try to keep cabinets and closets and shelves and any kind of storage space only 1/2 to 2/3 full, so that you can move stuff around, get to what you need, and see what you have. When it's too full, we forget about the stuff in the back. So again, part 1, declutter, reduce the inventory. Part 2, organize. And then part 3 is actually to maintain it. And I always thought once you get the organizing containers in place and everything, then your job is done. And it should kind of just organize itself. Like, what are we talking about here, right? But then I realized like, oh no, this maintenance piece is key. I think this is probably the most important part of it. And when I'm maintaining the space, it looks like putting stuff back in its assigned bins, its labeled bins where it goes. It looks like continually reevaluating the inventory. If I'm like, this shelf is always messy. this doesn't have a home. That's why this is just getting set outside of these baskets. And so I'm always reevaluating the inventory. Do we need to just declutter more? Do I need to reduce the inventory more? I've often said that if any space in your home isn't working, it probably just means there's too much inventory, whether it's your hall closet or your mud room or your kid's bedroom, your pantry. It just probably means you have too much inventory. So if that closet still isn't working well, then we say, maybe we need to go back to step one and we need to reduce the inventory a little bit more. And then sometimes we have to reevaluate the organization as well. And we're like, I thought this was going to work, but this bin is too big or it's too hard to get into or people forget what's in there. I need a clear bin here, whatever it might be. So we're kind of continually going around these 3 steps, but the maintenance one is really important because I thought I was failing at organizing. I was just failing at maintaining it. And so any system we put in place, it's going to require maintenance. But again, that's also an encouragement to go further with decluttering, because the further you declutter and reduce the inventory, the easier it is going to be to maintain it. So again, we kind of end up going through these 3 steps over and over again. Do I need to reduce inventory more? Do I need to adjust the organization, continuing to maintain it? And those questions of should I reduce the inventory further are always in the back of my mind, though, because I've often been surprised how far I have to go with reducing inventory to get areas to function really well.
Hey, Dawn, this is Julie from Texas. I have 6 kids, and my husband and I are in the middle of a transition to minimalism, and we have a debate I'd love for you to weigh in on. I argue that getting started with the decluttering piece will make the lift of getting the kids contributing to chores in the household easier. And so we should focus on that. Whereas he argues that we need to start with that habit of contributing, just the small chores, like even sweeping the floor or taking out the trash and just getting them in the habit first. And then as we declutter, it will just get easier and easier for them to help out. So I'd love to hear you weigh in on that. Chores or decluttering first?
Oh, no, I never like to get into the middle of these types of things, right? Especially when I'm kind of taking Julie's side on this. It's chicken and egg. You could certainly do either first. For me, decluttering made all the difference. I felt like such a loser as a mom. I felt like I was arguing and fighting and beating my head against the wall, trying to get our kids to help and to do stuff. And what I know now, being on the other side of having a highly simplified home, is that it's actually not hard to get our kids to help when your home is highly simplified. And I actually believe kids have an innate desire both to help and to be tidy. I never realized that most kids, I used to think it was kind of like everyone in the world. You have neat kids and tidy kids, and then you have messy kids, right? And I have 2 of each, right? But I realized that no, actually, even the ones that aren't more naturally inclined to be as neat and tidy, they still really love their spaces picked up and cleaned up. And so we help them so much when we reduce the inventory, and and then it makes it easier to manage their things and to stay on top of them. And so I am probably going to side with you here and say, I believe if you guys will put on the blinders and get your house highly decluttered, and sometimes for me, that looked like letting the kids watch an extra show, not as much family time, not as much game night or whatever. Saturdays were like, we're going all in. Maybe even finding someone else to watch the kids so that you can do this. If you are willing to put in that really dedicated effort now, especially when your kids are little, it is going to pay dividends. You will not look back. I don't look back now. I mean, there was many, many days where the kids watched TV all day, and I'm not proud of that, but I look back now and I'm like, who cares? So what? It was so worthwhile because minimalism has paid off now year after year after year. We're 9 years in and we're still enjoying the benefits. In fact, it's only gotten better and better. And I feel like it's improved my relationship with the kids. It has made it easier to involve them in chores. We don't have the battles. I don't feel bad asking them to help or to pick up their stuff or to keep their rooms tidy. I just can't believe how much stress and guilt and all of that it has alleviated. And now we do have time to spend time together and to camp and play games and all those things. I mean, it's very common most evenings for us to play some kind of game or be outside doing yard work together or playing outside or, doing something like that because we can, because the house is easy and it's easy for everyone to pitch in. And also then I don't get as resentful. I don't feel martyred. Like, I'm an Enneagram too, so I'm like the happy helper until I feel like you're taking advantage of me. Right? And then I am just like, you know what, all of you, like, I just want to throw all your stuff in the yard and make you all clean it up yourself, right? And so now I don't go down that path of feeling martyred and like, well, so nice for all of you that I do everything, right? And so it just all around, it has made everything about our family life so much easier and better. So keep decluttering. And it also comes to the question, and we've talked about this more recently, but should kids help? Don't we want to teach them this process? Don't worry, there will be plenty of time, plenty of time to instill these values in them as well. So I think initially, when you are trying to do the initial purge and huge declutter, it is absolutely okay to do it without them. In the book Simplicity Parenting by Kim John Payne, he says that it is absolutely okay for parents to declutter their kids' toys without them around. Your kids, once they get a little older than, 8, 9, 10, 11, then you might want to involve them. But yeah, actually even 9, 8, 9, 10, you don't have to, right? We're just boxing them up, putting them aside. We're not throwing them away or donating them. So please don't worry that if you are not involving your kids as much as you would like in this initial purge, because you just need to get it out and you need to get back to square one. There will be so many opportunities moving forward to practice decluttering and managing their inventory. So you absolutely do not have to worry about that.
I have done the all-day declutters several times now, and I feel like I've gotten the main area of our home in a pretty good state. But I still feel like, although things are better, that life could be even easier. So how do I push to go even further without feeling guilty? I don't know. I feel like there's something holding me back to go to that next minimal level.
Yeah, there absolutely is something holding you back. But first, well done. Good job. I mean, getting to the point where you're home where you're like, we don't have stuff all over the floor and everything. That is huge. And that represents so much progress. And it means you're starting to really develop a value for this. And now you've come up against the next hurdle is your brain. Your brain, which is naturally inclined to hoard and to keep things that have value. Your brain is saying, whoa, hold on now. We got rid of the easy stuff, the obvious clutter, the things we clearly weren't using. But now we're getting into the stuff that we spent money on and that is still good and useful. And so I'm sorry, why would we part with the stuff that we spent money on and we could maybe kind of possibly use in the future? So you're fighting against your natural wiring. You're fighting against many of us the way we were raised. We don't waste stuff. Things that we spent money on have value. We're coming up against cultural norms of like, everything's valuable, like you bought that stuff for a reason. You thought it was going to solve a problem and make your life easier. But now here it is. And pretty much anything that we're not using is clutter. And so there's so much cognitive dissonance, right? There's so much in our brain that is just like, I don't understand. This isn't right. This feels unnatural to let this stuff go. So you are in a very normal place. But here's what's cool. So you get to a tipping point. It's like hard. Oh my goodness, all this stuff, so many trips to the donation center. Like I'm never going to get anywhere. Like this is so hard. And then you get to a tipping point where you're like, you know what? Who cares? It's just stuff. It doesn't have feelings. It's not adding value. And my life and my time are so precious that I don't want to continue wasting it taking care of stuff that is adding no value to my life. And it was funny because during our last all day declutter, Cass said, she's like, okay, you're not rehoming a cat. She's like, this stuff does not have feelings. You don't have to feel guilty about letting it go. You don't have to find the perfect place for it to go, because that's also something that can hang us up when we want to be a hero and we're donating and be like, oh, but I have to make sure it goes to just the right place, because if I'm not using it and appreciating it, well, I need to make sure the next person is going to know how great it is and what it can do, and make sure, that they really appreciate it and know what they're getting, right? But that takes a lot of extra time and energy. So the ability to say, you know what, I spent money on it, but it's not adding value, and I'm just going to donate it. Like if you really need money, then yes, we can sell it. But for most of us, we don't have the capacity for that. We need to get it out. And so I am going to donate this thing. I am just going to take it to the easiest place that I can donate it, that accepts the widest variety of things. I'm going to donate it. I'm going to get it out of my home, because like you said, I sense from you that you believe that it will be better the further you go, and that you need to go further. Like you want to get your home to a place where it is super easy to manage, and that is possible. That is absolutely possible. And so it really is going to be telling yourself it is okay to get rid of things that I spent money on that are still perfectly good. And you know what? There is the possibility that I could declutter it and need it in the future. And I saw a really good reel on Instagram the other day, and it was a gal. She was actually a professor at a college. And, she said a lot of times her students will be coming up to her and they have to make these life decisions of, should I go to Harvard or should I go to Yale? Should I take this job or should I take that job? And she said the hard part is that you can't have it both ways to be able to compare them. You can't live a life without kids and then also live a life with 3 kids and then compare them. You can't, she said one student was choosing between Harvard and Yale, and they said they chose Yale and they went, and then they didn't have a good year. And they're like, I should have chose Harvard. She's like, you don't know, because you can't go back and do your first year at Harvard again and compare them. We always glamorize and we think, especially if we feel like we've made mistakes decluttering, oh, well, I shouldn't have got rid of that. And then I would have had this and then, whatever. But we don't know. We can't just get rid of everything in our house and then compare that to not and move forward in life with both options, right? And then, oh, if I need it, I still have it, but I don't have it because I don't want to maintain it anymore, right? There's absolutely no way to have both. And so we make educated decisions. We use the past. That is the only data we have to work with. None of us can predict the future. And we make the best decision that we can. And then if we've made a mistake, and I know many of you said, but Dawn, I made a mistake. Yeah, because you couldn't predict the future. You couldn't compare both. You couldn't compare having a house with all that stuff and without it. So yeah, you made a mistake. And your brain is going to hang on to that too. Negativity bias, right? And it's going to remind you. And the next time you go to declutter, it's going to be like, oh, wait, but you decluttered that one item that you needed, right? And you're like, I know, but I've also decluttered 1,852 other items that I didn't regret and I didn't end up needing. But the one item that I feel like I made a mistake on is what I remember. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves, you know what? There is some risk involved, but most likely I'm not going to miss this stuff and I'm never going to need it again. And if I make a mistake, I'm going to be very easy on myself because I am making the best decision I can right now with the information that I have. And I can't tell the future. And there's no way to live out both scenarios and to compare it. So I believe having a highly simplified house is going to help me mentally. I'm going to be less anxious. I'm going to be less stressed. I'm going to be a better mom. I'm going to feel more calm. Everyone around me is going to benefit from it. I am worthy of that. My kids are worthy of that. And so I'm just going to do the best I can. And I'm going to keep reminding myself it's okay to get rid of things that I've spent money on. So please know this is so common. You're definitely not alone, but keep pushing through because my goodness, does it keep getting better and better.
I am in menopause and I have ADHD, and I am trying to declutter my house the best I can. I get home, I work full time. I'm trying to get home and declutter, and I really don't give a crap. I'll be honest with you. I don't care if it stays there for eternity. And I shut down. What the heck can I do?
You are not alone. You are not alone. Oh man, I remember one of my first jobs was as a personal trainer. And what are you trying to do when you're a personal trainer? You're just trying to figure out a way to motivate people, right? How can we help them? They know the value, they know the benefit, right? And that's why you're feeling frustrated with yourself. You're like, I know my house would be better and it'd be easier if I could just get this stuff decluttered and get it all sorted out and get through that. And also there is this very real reality that I'm tired at the end of the day. And there are days when I just couldn't care less. And so it's so normal. It is so normal. So what I've learned from, some of the friends we've gotten to visit with here on our podcast. And I would encourage you to go back if you haven't heard the interview with Sarah McDonald. That she was so good. And that was just a couple weeks ago, and we'll link it here. But also Britt Frank, who wrote the book, The Science of Stuck. And she said, you have to pick the smallest thing that will move the needle forward. And this is not glamorous, and it does not feel like you're making progress. If you say you want to declutter your linen closet, and you're like, okay, I'm going to look for 2 things that I can donate today. And you're like, well, yeah, that's great and all, but there's 800 other things in this closet. So if I keep going at that pace, well, it's going to take me a year just to get through the linen closet. So who cares, right? But we have to stop that train of thought and be like, no, because this is all about getting back in the game. This is all about going a little further than I think I can today. So if I walk up to a closet and I'm like, I'm going to find 2 things to declutter today that are going to get donated. Well, what happens? Now we think like, oh, well, actually this thing can go too, and this thing too. And then I found 5 things. And some days you might stop there and it's fine. You might take a minute, straighten it up, grab your donations, throw them in your donation box, and you're done. Do you know how much better you are going to feel about yourself if you're willing to do that? There is something about action, even the smallest actions, that gets us out of the ruminating part of our brain where we're just running over and over again. I suck. Why can't I do this? I'm so lazy. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Why can't I? Why do other people get their house decluttered and I don't? And then other times we're like, I don't even care. I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care. Whatever. It is what it is. It's not going anywhere. And at the end of the day, it's not really hurting anyone. And so that one small action gets us back kind of on top where we're like, okay, this isn't fun, but I can do it. I'm capable. I have the skills. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've learned a lot of new things. I am capable of doing this. And so it's like just picking the smallest thing. Another idea too is to know what part of the day do you have the most energy. So many people in our membership group, they used to leave their decluttering tasks for the end of the day, but now they do it in the morning. And so if you will set a timer for 5 minutes when you're actually in a more energetic state of mind, again, you don't have to be like, I'm so energized today. But if you're like, well, chances are higher in the morning that I will be successful with this. So you set a timer in the morning before you go to work for 5 minutes. We are only talking about 5 minutes. You pick one small area that you are going to work on, one shelf in the linen closet, one drawer in the bathroom, and you just go through it quickly. That concerted effort, that really focused time, you get way more done than in a half hour of after work where you really don't feel like it, but you're trying to force yourself. You will be amazed how quickly you can begin to work through things. And then the third thing is that often we need to bring community around us. And so that's why our membership group is so effective and so phenomenal, because we need to do this within community. We need to see what other people are doing. We need to get permission to let things go. We need to work through our mental hangups. We need to tell the stories of things that are sentimental or special, or that we just don't know why we're so attached to it. There is something about going through this together in community that is so helpful and so motivating. Doing body doubling. We have body doubling opportunities almost every week. It makes a huge difference. And so if you'd be willing to invest in yourself, so this is like $15 a month, right? And if you buy multiple months, it's cheaper. But if you're willing to say, you know what, maybe for a few months, I'm just going to try this out and I'm going to do it, and just try it. But you might really find that bringing community around it is really helpful. There's that quote that says, grief demands a witness. That when we're going through something hard, or we're grieving, we're working through things, that we need to be seen in that. And I think often decluttering demands a witness too. Like we need to be celebrated for the progress we're making. We need to have a safe place to ask questions and to work through these things. That I just think that is so important. And I've seen it. I've seen many, many women break through their plateaus and their stumbling blocks in this group. And so it's so good. It's so fun to be a part of. So anyways, I will stop the commercial for that now. There could be people in your natural context. That's awesome. Like if you have friends that you can work on this with, there's other online groups and whatnot for free, and lots of ways that you can do that. But often we can't do this alone. Not for the long haul. We can have spurts here and there, but it's hard to stay motivated all the time on your own.
Hi, Dawn. My name is Sarah, and I'm a mom to 2 boys who are both under the age of 5. And over the last several months, we've decluttered, I'd say like 80% of their toys, and it feels really good. We're able to manage our toys so much better, and it's going great. But I've recently come to this like kind of block where I have toys for like a specific purpose. Like, so for example, we have a bag of church toys, and they're meant to like help the kids be reverent at church. So it's this like massive bag that we haul into church each week. And we're like, I feel like we're carrying like half our toys to church. It's kind of become overwhelming. So my question is, how do I declutter those toys? I feel like I am having a hard time decluttering them because I bought them for a specific purpose. The problem is they're not really fulfilling that purpose anymore. The kids aren't really using them as well, and they're not being super quiet. But I'm still just like having a really hard time getting rid of them because they were for a specific purpose.
Way to go, decluttering your kids' toys. 80%, that's huge. And I bet it feels so good in your home. And then we have these other ones, and they can come in many forms. For some, it's like educational toys, Montessori toys, toys you really thought your kids would like, and now they don't really show a lot of interest in it. I've also heard moms that have neurodivergent kids that often say, we'll go do a therapy and the kids will use a toy or a certain like manipulative there. And I think, wow, so good. They loved it. And then I buy it and we get it home and then they don't hardly ever use it, right? Or you've probably had the experience too where your kids go somewhere and they play with these things and you're like, wow, that kept them entertained for hours. I want to get it at our house. And then it doesn't really get used. And if we were to expand it even further, many of us as adults have this same category of stuff in our crafts and our hobbies and that kind of stuff, right? Like, but it was supposed to fill this purpose and it's not, right? But it's hard to admit that. And I spent money on it and it's a little sad and I might have to grieve something about it, right? So it's very loaded. So I don't want to oversimplify this, but also I want to say you have permission to let that stuff go. I mean, you said just in your description, it's a lot to take in. It's not really serving the purpose, right? So you've already decided you don't want this stuff anymore. And so now it's just the guilt. And so I think we would all say it's okay. We all have made these purchases. We all thought something would be something, and maybe it was for a little bit, maybe it never was, but it's not now. And it's okay to let that go because I mean, the definition of insanity in this case would be trying to keep something thinking it is someday somehow going to serve that purpose and fulfill that, right? And it's not. And that's okay. So, permission to let those things go. Is it always easy? No, it's kind of like I was talking about earlier, getting into this point where we're getting rid of perfectly good things. And also, sometimes with this kind of stuff, again, we want to be the hero with decluttering it. And we think, oh, maybe if I give it to another family at church, maybe they have younger kids, maybe their kids are different, maybe they would really appreciate it. And we start to think like, now I need to find just the perfect home for it because not just everybody will appreciate these things. And maybe if I just bring it to the donation center, they might not understand and they might not know how great it is or how much money I spent on it or how much value is there. Like somehow I need to find a way to make this right. Right. And our brain is constantly trying to like solve that puzzle. I heard something so good recently and it was talking about ruminating, where we just get stuck on these thoughts. When we mull over problems in our head, it's supposed to serve a purpose. It's supposed to get us to a point where we find the solution. The light bulb goes off and we're like, oh, right. Yeah, that's what we should do in this case. But sometimes we get stuck and then we just ruminate. And we're like, oh, but I spent money on it. Where would I, give it to? And we need to sometimes step off of the hamster wheel and be like, no, it is what it is. And so I'm not going to be a hero with decluttering it. I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to try to think that something's going to change and all of a sudden it's going to be the best thing ever for our kids. And I'm just going to say, stop. It's okay. I'm going to forgive myself if I feel like I made a mistake with the purchase or I shouldn't have bought it or I shouldn't have spent money on it. All of these things I shouldn't have done. We're going to say, it's okay. I made the best decision I could with the information I had at the time. I thought it was going to be really good. I thought it was going to solve this problem or enhance my children's life, in some way. So I really, truly believed that it was going to be a good purchase. And that's okay because I can't predict the future. And any purchase we make is a risk. And so it's okay. We have to stop being so hard on ourselves about this. So permission to let go of any things, toys, other things in your home that are not living up to what you bought them for, what you intended them for. Remember, things are tools. They are meant to make our life easier and better. And if those things are not doing that, then there's no point in keeping those things. They are now clutter, and now they're a liability for me to manage. They're not an asset, they're a liability. So like those toys, and you can sense it in the words you're using, right? Like they have become a liability. Nobody wants them. No one wants to keep them. You don't want them, right? And so again, permission to let that stuff go. You're going to feel so much better when it's done. When it's gone, you're just going to be like, oh, this is so nice. And trust me, once you get to the point like closer to where we are and your house is so highly simplified and you have so little stuff that you are managing, you are not going to even think back about all of the stuff you've decluttered. You're going to be like, who cares? Because this is so good and I am enjoying my kids so much and like I feel better, I feel more confident. You're just not even going to ever think about it again. It's going to be so good. So keep going it really does just keep getting better and better. Well, thank you so much for listening today. If you are listening on YouTube, would you subscribe to our podcast channel? So this is like a separate channel from our main Minimal Mom channel. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, it helps get it out in front of more people. Sharing it too is always helpful. I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And if you want to leave your own question, we'll have a link down there for that as well. I love you. I hope you have a really good day, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us on the Minimal Mom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might find value in embracing a simplified life.